This episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast is brought to you by Financial Adventures Balanced Life Coaching Programs. Financial Adventures Balanced Life Coaching Programs are built for high stress professionals like accountants who are busy with their careers and have a hard time accomplishing what they truly want in their lives. By utilizing the 5-step process in the Balanced Life Coaching Programs, you will receive strategy, mentorship, and coaching with a dedicated growth coach to intentionally create the life you desire. You will clarify exactly what you want in your life, create solutions for achieving your goals, and focus on them 30 days at a time in a format that is most convenient for you. You will not only achieve your goals, but you will also increase your sense of purpose, self satisfaction, and lead a more fulfilling life. What is one thing you would like to improve in your life? What is it costing you by not having a coach help you get what you want in your life? You can learn more about these programs or sign up for a free consultation at financialadventure.com. And while you are there, subscribe to the private podcast for high stress professionals at financialadventure.com/private. Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast. My name is Gary Dehart. I'm the publisher of Insightful Accountant and the host of the Accounting Insiders podcast. My guest today is Serah Blackstone-Fredericks, hailing from the greater Northern California area. Serah, thanks for joining me for a little discussion today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate being here.
Absolutely. And Serah is the CEO and founder of Books in Harmony. And Serah has I was hopped on your LinkedIn profile before we started our green room conversation, and you've been office manager for a plumbing company up to now your own CEO and founder of Books in Harmony, and a few different roles in between. But there was a common thread through most of that, right? And that was accounting, bookkeeping.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I just stumbled into bookkeeping by happenstance because I was helping a friend who is an attorney and she needed some assistance drafting depositions and like reviewing lots of legal paperwork and pulling things at law libraries. And I had that meticulous attention to detail. So lo and behold, her plumbers come for a job. I'm self-taught in Spanish and a few other languages. So we just strike
Okay.
up a conversation and they're like, you're really smart. Like, come work at our office. And I was needing kind of more work and to build the work as a
Right.
single sole provider. I was like, sure. And I kind of jumped right in and it was easy and it was um, I was quick, I was fast, I was accurate. So word kind of spread, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to dive into left brain work. I really like, creative hobbies and
Yeah.
I wanted to, do the arts, and I would kind of transition in between to working at preschools. My daughter's preschool poached me to work there for like 6 years. And, with that common thread, still doing the bookkeeping on the weekend, still really enjoying the bookkeeping and
Yeah.
visiting clients and seeing different businesses, but really liking variety and seeking that variety.
Okay. And so with that, and so you mentioned fluent in several languages. I think it was Spanish, Italian, German, English. We'll throw English in there.
Yeah,
Uh,
English, all the
great.
romance I'm very comfortable in.
Yeah.
And then I've studied Japanese since I was 11. But you know, I feel comfortable in Japanese, but I wouldn't do business in Japanese. I
Right.
can
Okay.
read Japanese. I might not always know what I'm reading, but I know phonetically what I'm reading. I don't know how the words translate. So, I just really enjoy keeping my brain very active, and I have a natural ear for language.
Yeah.
Um, I grew up Hindu, so we went to temple. So I know a lot of Hindi, and there's just a lot of nuance of language that it's really a gift, and I like to develop it.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. And how do you develop it? I mean, because I think the hardest part about language, right, is if you're not using it, it
Yeah,
certainly is perishable.
yeah.
How do you stay current on it?
Interesting. So there's this great book. I'm not sure of the author. It's called Fluent Forever.
Okay.
And he talks about a forgetting curve. And what's really interesting is there is a natural forgetting curve with languages. But if you let yourself forget a bit and then you practice and you activate your brain to recall, then you are able to really participate in the language and rely on what you know. And one thing that I really recommend for language learners is to not think of this person speaking to me in this language, so I'm going to translate it and respond. I
Mm,
have developed second brains in these languages. So I'm thinking in Spanish when I'm speaking in Spanish, and I'm
yeah.
going to respond in Spanish. And if I don't know the word, I'm going to describe to get to the word. And then maybe the other person who's, born and raised speaking the language is going to fill in the word, and then I'm going to have the word. So it's just a
Okay.
matter of participating and being willing to be a little embarrassed.
Oh, that's great. Actually, it's funny. My oldest son, actually, both my sons have had to take Spanish and have not done
Yeah.
really well in it. But the oldest one in particular just really struggles with the second language. And he joined the Army Reserves last year, about a year ago. And he this weekend, one of the guys mentioned to him, they're like, "Hey, you can go to the Army language school, and it's like a 1 year school, and you'll be
Oh,
fluent in whatever language chosen." And so he's actually considering that, which is really funny because he really struggles with the second language.
yeah.
But that immersion course, I'm sure he would come out fluent in something. So
Yeah, and I think there's like a point of struggle with languages, and if you can get past it, then
yeah,
it gets a little easier, but it takes a very long time. Like with Portuguese, I was really struggling, but I decided to kind of learn it parallel to Italian, and there was a lot of similarities, and
yeah,
I
I
had
would think so.
Spanish,
Yeah.
had French. So it was like once I got past this point of resistance, then I started to understand everything and it just clicked. So you have to, I think, be willing to persist and yeah, Monterey County actually here in California, they have like a interpreter
Yeah.
school or something for them.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I said. I'm like, oh, you can go to Monterey. He's like, well, they
Yeah,
moved it. He said that Monterey is now the where they do kind of the advanced, but I guess they have the initial somewhere
yeah,
else.
yeah. Oh,
Maybe
and just,
maybe the initial is in the desert somewhere, and the advance
oh,
is in Monterey. Monterey is my favorite place, by the way.
it's beautiful.
It's
Yeah,
fantastic. I love Monterey. All right, but we're actually here to talk about your business,
yeah.
and well, I guess that's partially your business, right? You've got
Huh.
this well-rounded background. So, where we want to kind of take the conversation is kind of where you've been, which we just did talk about that, where you are now in your practice, and then kind of really where you're headed. So, along those lines, with kind of now being in that, where are you now? You've been in business 6, 7 years.
Yeah, I can't even count. I think I incorporated December 2017, so 6, 7. It
All
sounds right.
right. So that's still a little bit of where you were, but so when you started the business, were you primarily working with local companies, or were you working with anybody anywhere? What?
Yeah, actually. So when I started the business, I had been working for CPAs and really supporting them with the in-house bookkeeping work,
Okay.
but also with the capability of bringing work home. And then I had a handful of private clients in Marin County that I would go see on weekends or on an as-needed basis for various tasks. And I realized I had a real knack for spotting inefficiencies and having like a good overhead view of like what's happening. And I was too fast with the work that I had to work double, triple time to bill the same amount of hours for somebody who's moving a bit slower or is
Right.
like lazy with their work or socializing. So I started to understand that the model of hourly billing wouldn't be supportive moving forward. And I was putting things together and considering branching out on my own. How was I going to do it? I knew ethically I didn't want to like poach anybody's clients that were working with me. That didn't feel good. And it wasn't until I saw one of the CPAs I was supporting invoices of billable hours for me. She was paying me 40 an hour, billing me at 200.
Oh wow. You're like, hello.
I know. And I was just like, okay, this is the plan. I'm out. Maybe that was like July, August. So by December, I was like, I'm going to join a networking group. I joined BNI and I'm going to connect with business owners, learn to speak about what I offer confidently, and just start, gathering clients. So, started pitching clients in that December, 75 an hour, really learned quickly it still wasn't a good model to work hourly for me. So then I started just playing with fixed price and value pricing very early on. And I knew that that was how I was going to reach the metrics of what I needed to earn because being a single parent in California, I need to make two incomes.
Right.
So it's like no brainer. Got to do it. I have to pay everything. So I was like, that's the metric I want to get here. How do I get here? Small clients, it's a lot more work. It's tedious. I was like, okay, a few large clients, some small clients, some medium clients. And then very quickly, I was doubling my revenue every year, 75,000, 150,000. So just up and up.
And do you find that that the clients prefer to work on a flat fee?
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
it's really easy to sell because they don't have to think about what they're paying and they're clear about what they're paying for the year. And personally, I prefer to not have a lot of billing to do. So I offer a discount if people prepay for the year. I offer that after about a few months of work. I take a retainer, which I call investment to commence services, and we work from that to kind of see what that rate's going to be if they fall into the first package, the second, or the third.
Yeah.
And I've, made mistakes with that because occasionally there's like triples of duplication and that's manual deletion. And I'm like, oh, this is 40 hours instead of 20. So
Right.
getting better at.
Well, and that's part of the whole learning process, right? Maybe, you've learned maybe I need to do a little more due diligence on the front end, really
Yes,
dig into the books before I can
yes,
commit to anything, right?
exactly.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, what are you seeing are the biggest struggles for your clients right now? And
Yeah.
is there a common thread like across the client base?
Yeah. What I'm observing more and more and I'm noticing is that people come to me and to us and have no idea what bookkeeping is and no idea why they need it. And the biggest challenge is that people think that bookkeeping is like office admin work, like 20 an hour office admin where we're just, putting in some things and, plugging away numbers at the computer. They don't really understand that a good bookkeeper is like a trusted advisor, is that support and guidance. And if there's a willingness to collaborate, then there's an opportunity to really learn about your business and set metrics of growth with somebody who is an incredible investment. It's not really an expense. Like that's the biggest thing, I think, convincing value and then clarifying what we do.
Then what about and I totally agree with you on that because I think the value, I mean, you've got all the data, right? And if you understand what the data means or what you can do with that data,
Mhm.
your level of value increases dramatically to
Yes.
the client
Yes.
because yeah, okay, I can hit a button and run a report, but if you hit a button, run a report, and then sit down with me and explain to me, hey, this is what's going on in your business,
Mhm.
because I'm the best plumber in the country. I'm not necessarily the best at my books. I don't care about my books, right? I
Uh,
just want to go do my plumbing business.
yeah.
And so I think people in your position are in a position of that can offer tremendous value to their clients. And are you seeing that more of your clients are looking for that type of service where they're just really want to say, all right, you do all this, tell me on, every 2 weeks if I have a problem or sooner if I have a real problem, or
Yeah.
let's just meet monthly. What's your client base really look like?
Yeah, good question. So we're having a lot more of the requests to have a mix of advisory and bookkeeping. And I spent a lot of time last year kind of playing on the pricing for that. But I realized it's a huge service and it's a huge offering. And I'm A, not offering it for free. And B, if they really want to do that deep work, there's going to be an investment to do that work. And what I found was there was so much resistance that people really didn't want to pay for it. But ultimately, they're leaning on us as they would lean on a CPA, a financial advisor, like a whole team of people. So it's been tricky. There's a lot of requests for that support, but I just pretty much am like, well, if you want that level of support, you're going to go into the highest package and pay
Right.
them because it's more work and more effort. And it's just more looking at the books, making sure, they're having these reports on Mondays, things of that nature. So I find that clients tend to request that initially, and then they realize that A, they're not looking, or B, it's not as useful as they thought it would be because they're actually not doing what they're being asked to do. It is a
Right.
collaboration. So it happens for a little bit and then it kind of peters off. So my goal is ultimately to get people to a place where they understand the books, really guide and educate them so that if they, want to take over, that's a possibility. So I'm more working on a project basis, and the project might be a year together, but I have
Okay.
going out.
Gotcha. And what about your how do you prevent scope creep?
Oh yeah, great
So I think
question.
that's a problem for everybody, right?
Huge, yeah. One of my friends has just a general contract that people fill out on his website. The way that I prevent scope creep is that I work on every single contract after the conversation is had and we're connecting for a discovery call. I'm recapping. I spend about 30 minutes recapping everything we discussed. So I know everything that I discussed that they mentioned that they want included. And from there, that builds the agreement, the client service
Okay.
agreement, and that's what's on there. And I'm like, okay, is this, what we're needing? And then there's a line in there or a paragraph really, anything outside of this is going to be a fee. And just really being clear about that and reiterating. And I'm really learning now, you can't really do that. Like, I'll do this as a one-time courtesy thing because that becomes consistent and those people tend to take advantage. So ultimately, I just draw the line. Yeah,
Yeah.
very.
Yeah, and I think you have to, else you get a lot of those. Hey, you've got a second, right?
Uh-huh.
Just have one. I just have one question for you.
Always.
Yeah, right. So,
Exactly.
so, so what's your biggest challenge right now in your practice itself? Like, what are
Yeah,
you struggling with?
good question. So I think because I'm somebody who has very healthy boundaries, and working with people's money is such an activating area. It's almost like we are money psychologists. We are in a very close relationship with clients, and we see different sides of them that might not come out with day-to-day interactions. So I have half of my business that has been obliterated because we, at the end of the year, increase our rates. We increase our rates consistently. I looked at, a few contracts. They were really getting, a great deal. And I was like, this is a loss. This is a loss. So this either they need to pay more or they need to find another bookkeeper. And most of them decided to walk. And there's this transition period of I do mostly referral marketing. So just referral marketing, it's not even marketing. I just meet with people and connect with people, and it's
Right.
really holistic and organic. And that's how I get the best referrals and the best people coming in. But I think it's just really trusting the process that the the lower amounts of stress that I have because I don't have these clients that became incredibly difficult once they were on the way out, the ease that I have in really looking at red flag clients when we're on that discovery call and not changing any of my values as a business owner with my business for
Mhm.
what the client is saying that they need. That's been really, really supportive because things always bounce back. But yeah, what I'm observing is like there's these big ebb and flows financially, and I really need to be prepared for it in a different way.
Right. Okay. So what is that that
Again.
disengagement and offboarding? What does that look like? I mean, you can't just call them and go, "We're not doing business together anymore. Goodbye." Right? I mean,
Uh,
because you have a responsibility and you have their data and well,
yeah.
where they have it, but you don't. One, you don't want to burn any bridges, right? And but two, you do need to get them out of your practice, right? You need
Mhm.
to, so you can move on. What does
Yeah.
that process look like? I mean, you said that there's some of them aren't as smooth as others.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's pretty tricky half the time, I'd say.
Yeah.
Some people, they're like, things are really difficult. We've really enjoyed working together. And the difficulty might be that the CPA really doesn't know how to use QuickBooks Online and is just, constantly saying the bookkeeper doesn't have the work done. And that's not true. The difficulty might be that they're not responsive to the questions and they're thinking the financials are late when really they're not being responsive. There's many different ideas of what difficulty is, but I'm never going to be one to try to tell clients that that's invalid or wrong. I want to
Right.
just support them. So the best thing that I've done is have a written process for this engagement with steps of what needs to happen, 1, 2, 3.
Hmm.
Ultimately, you want to make sure you're removed from things, but in the proper time. So if you're trying to close things out, you close things out. So we start by, really thanking them for their business and acknowledging the gratitude of having the opportunity to collaborate. And then we list what's going to happen next, what you can expect in the next month. I try to roll it out within 30 days and give time to kind of close out the books wherever we might be. Generally, it's year end. So, what I find is we close for Christmas break, we reopen the new year, we reconnect, and we want to make sure that everything's reconciled. If we're missing some statements, we want to make sure that those statements come in. But I now give a hard stop date. Like, I need this by January 25th so that I can do XYZ. If it's not received by that date, it's at our discretion. And that's a new thing because, we have the people that trickle in and are bringing things in as needed, or April 10th they're like, I need 9 months put in, and they're supposed to be out the door, so I can really measure my workflow and see who's coming in and plan accordingly. So it's a step process. And then once the books are done, I send provisionals and I'm like, here are your provisional financials. Are there any final updates? Please let me know by this date. They let me know. If they don't, I send them, beautiful Canva template we make. Thank you so much for working together. This is your end date. This is what the process looks like. Please remove us from your online banking, QuickBooks Online, all these kind of steps so that the client has that in their court to handle.
Right.
And then it's just from there. I also have if you want to re-engage, this is what the process is like. You will, onboard as a new client, and this is the fees, and these can change. And I think you want to allow for flexibility because people are human, but not too much room for people to take advantage.
Right. Yeah. Because people will, whether they do it purposely or not. Right. I
Very much
mean,
so. And I think, personally, you should always be willing to connect with the new bookkeeper if they have someone. I offer that up to 2 months after service. Like, I'll connect with the new bookkeeper for an hour. It's not going to be they're asking me a bunch of questions via email, because I'm
right.
going to write up something with my process. And when people onboard, I ask, does your prior bookkeeper have a write up of their procedures and process? Often not, but it's important to just really have things written out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's great. So, what about mistakes you've made and how to avoid them?
Yeah, this is great. I actually am so glad to share this because the day after Christmas in 2023 of last year, I had a client file a fraudulent chargeback claim on
Okay.
services, and it was almost $12,000 worth of work. And, just luckily I logged on because I was going to run payroll. And I was like, well, this is unusual.
Right.
And I learned in speaking with a lot of chargeback companies, credit cards really are going to lean in favor of the client as opposed to the merchant. And I ran into a few chargebacks last year with this client and another client, and then another one worked out, and they all were American Express.
Hmm.
So I've decided moving forward, I'm no longer going to be accepting credit cards
Okay.
um, at all. I mean, mind you, I'm paying, $30,000 a year in credit card fees.
Right.
And they're saying, it's a certain percentage, and they're obviously exceeding that amount with all their little, fine print that we don't always read. But really, no matter how tight the contract is, you really want to be mindful of who you are going into support. And I
Yeah.
had feelings about this client when she was onboarding. Her bookkeeper was really bitter and she seemed a little rude. And it turned out that it completely, became a very difficult engagement. and it wasn't positive and it was really stressful. And then she, requested a refund on the work 200 hours we've done. So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
lesson
It's like,
learned.
right.
Be
Well,
really mindful about the contracts and know that if you're accepting credit cards, it can be challenged. So, yeah.
that's actually a really good bit of advice right there. So there
Yeah.
you go. So you learned something painful,
Yes.
costly.
Big lesson.
Yeah. It hopefully not the end of the business costly, but it's but painful for sure. So
Yeah.
hopefully tighter contracts and tighter engagements will prevent that in the future, and no more credit cards. There you go. It's
Exactly.
out.
And just build on your contract. Like we added a clause, people are allowed within 2 weeks if they, don't want to do services for 7 days, they'll get a full refund. Like they change their mind, great, we'll refund you because we've dealt with things where people are like, oh, well, I don't really like the service and we're 30 days in and we started the work. So just keep working on that contract till it feels
Yeah,
good.
yeah, and deal with people the way you want to be dealt with, right? I mean,
Exactly.
that 90% of the time, I think, if not more, frequently, will handle things. So
Exactly.
let's we're gonna start wrapping up here. So, but before we do, I do want to touch on kind of what do you see as the biggest areas of improvement for either your firm or other firms that outside of tighter engagements and getting rid of credit cards. What are
Yeah.
some other areas that you've experienced or that you've seen colleagues experience where really little tweaks here and there would have either made a big difference or has made a big difference moving forward?
Yeah, of course. When I first started the business, I had a lot more time to do quarterly evaluations and just kind of looking at the business financials, seeing where money was being spent and preparing for the next quarter, thinking about something maybe I'd like to do differently, something I'd like to focus on more. Generally, for
Okay.
me, that's networking. And I think it would be really helpful if I brought that back. And I'm, really heavily considering when I'm going to do that. Like, what's the metric of the time to just evaluate the business? Because, like, the client that ended up being a huge loss for us for the past few years, we kept adding on files. She has lots of entities. We added on bookkeeping files and gave her a deep discount. And then I hadn't even assessed that really it was looking like we were making $30 an hour doing the work. So you really want to assess things, especially when you're doing value pricing, because the
Mhm.
revenue comes in and it's in lump sum. So it seems like it's supportive and it's enough. But, had I had, eight separate clients paying a regular price, that would have been triple that income from
Right.
that one client who had the multiple files. So I think really just tighter timelines of evaluating the business, what's working, what's not working, what I'd like to change.
Yeah, and I think as small business owners and small firms, it's really hard to do that because, and it's not my quote. I don't know who said it first, but working on versus in the business, right? And we don't spend. My business partner has been pretty good about keeping us. We have these regular meetings that I hate, but we have them, and they're important. But because it does force us to stop, take a
Yeah.
breath, and look at and talk about the different parts of the business. And there's lots of bits and pieces. Some are humming along, working well. Some there's always area for improvement in all the parts of the business. But we've got one thing we're working on in particular right now that's a going to be a big investment for us, the biggest we've had, and is has a gazillion little parts and pieces that could trip us up. And if we don't have those meetings and if we don't spend that time working on it, one, it'll never happen. Two, it'll be a disaster when it does happen. So it
Ooh,
is critical to work on the business and to carve it out, whether it's at
true.
5 in the morning on Mondays or 5 in the evenings on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And with that, I actually want to throw in, I'm thinking of hiring a bookkeeper. Like I'm a bookkeeper and I'm thinking of hiring a bookkeeper myself because it's like the growth's been wonderful, but also it's a matter of, I think, removing yourself and, having somebody who's a little more objective,
right.
it, might be helpful. So yeah.
Yeah, especially yeah, and if you give them the the ability or whatever,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
to set to call you and go, hey,
That
we got a
suggestion.
problem, right? And yeah,
Exactly. Notice
yeah,
fraud, all sorts of things. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You have to stop eating at all the five-star restaurants, all the
Exactly.
five-star vegan restaurants in Northern California, right? So,
Exactly. You know me well.
all right. So, all right, last question, and then, well, two more questions. This
Mhm.
question specifically around client, how do you find new clients? Could you mention networking? Is
Yeah.
that where you get most of your new clients?
Yeah, definitely. So, also like smaller publications can be helpful. We are 100% remote. I only offer remote services. So, ultimately, posting in things like the newspaper, you're going to tend to find people who want you to come to their home. And the
Okay,
biggest thing for me is I don't want to deal with the dynamics of people's homes and workplaces. So smaller publications, I've done like small advertising for smaller publications, like real estate association type things, because we work with a lot of realtors, real estate
okay,
investors, and just networking, Chamber of Commerce locally, events that they might hold, and looking out for business mixers and things of that sort. It can help you really get your feet wet in learning to speak about your business and become comfortable in speaking with other business owners.
gotcha. Are you familiar with Alignable?
Yeah, I like,
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
Kimberly No, do you know her? You know Kimberly
No.
No? She introduced me to it. So she's built a group of QuickBooks Pro Advisor group on Alignable. It has, last time I looked, maybe 3,900 members in it.
Oh,
Plus,
wow.
then they have the individual communities. But that's one you might want to take a look at, just because it's, again, it's focused
Yeah.
in that Pro Advisor space.
Yeah.
So, all
Thanks
right,
for,
last. Oh,
yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So I was gonna say, last question is around reading books you like to read or books you've read recently that
Yes.
that are you're either your go-to um, from a business standpoint or just any good personal books.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought of business standpoint because I am a voracious reader. So I'm
Yeah.
always reading books. And the ones that I kind of always pick up are Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less by Greg McGowan, and Atomic Habits by James Clear,
Mhm.
and Manifest Now by Adil Ahmed. Those are like three that I love and I'm always picking up. And I think, there's so many metrics as business owners to like grow, get big, conquer, dominate, make a lot of money. And over time, I've realized time is the entity that I value most. I like my time. I want to
Yeah.
have time, and how do I pare down? How do I simplify? I don't do all the apps. I don't change all the apps. For a while I would change from like Asana to Trello, and I was like, just simple. And simplifying and keeping things simple helps everything just be clear and life really feel comfortable and manageable, especially when you're supporting different clients and you have one process and one system that they're kind of all going into. And yeah, with that, I'm going to share like when people are like, hey, I use this app and I need you to learn it, I will say no.
Yeah.
I will say no. Like if it's something I have experience with and I'm familiar with and I don't like it, I will say no. Like, and I love apps. I'm sharp. I can learn apps, but I really want to support in applications that I feel have a good user experience, make sense, really support the business owner's needs. I work with a lot of service-based businesses, so we don't need
Mhm.
a lot of complicated apps, but yeah, really paring down. Mhm.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you having a conversation with me. And
Likewise.
it was a pleasure. And I'm sure that we will talk to you very soon.
We sure will.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
All
All right.
right.
Bye bye. This episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast is brought to you in part by Xero. Xero is a powerful cloud accounting software that improves efficiencies across your practice. With all client data stored on a single unified ledger, you and your clients can easily access and collaborate on the same set of books. Xero's advisor tools and automation solutions reduce time-consuming manual tasks and put data entry on autopilot. Work faster and more efficiently than ever before with Xero. Visit xero.com/accounting insiders to learn more. This episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast is brought to you by Out of the Box Technology. Out of the Box Technology is your partner in accounting data services. With over 7,500 industry migrations performed and an expansive network of third-party integrations, a partnership with Out of the Box will augment your advisory practice and turbocharge client accounting operations. Visit outoftheboxtechnology.com/insightful-accountant to get started.